Welcome to the Boss Audits and Investigations. And thank you for joining me for another episode of the Scientology Chronicles. So let's jump right in. This document is dated May 26, 1966. On May 19th, 1966, Mr. Joseph Cartwright of the Minneapolis Better Business Bureau contacted me stating that the Scientology group is again active in the Twin City area. Two people contacted him stating that machines are being used for psychoanalysis and that a course is being offered for anyone interested in, quote unquote, bettering themselves. He stated that he also had additional inquiries regarding Scientology and its practice in general. The first individual who called regarding the use of a machine was Mrs. Joyce Eyre of Newton Avenue, Minneapolis, Minnesota. She stated that a friend of hers who wished to remain anonymous had a 15-year-old child who was having problems communicating. The child had been taking the course for approximately 2 weeks and had showed some improvement during that time. However, the course was very expensive and her primary interest was whether the course and the group were legitimate. Mrs. Eyre called on May 5th, 1966, and stated that if the anonymous individual had any questions, he would call Mr. Cartwright at the Better Business Bureau. On the afternoon of the same day, an anonymous man contacted Mr. Cartwright and told essentially the same story regarding his 15-year-old boy as had been told by Mrs. Eyre. Apparently, this was the individual referred to by Mrs. Eyre. Mr. Cartwright concluded by stating that apparently the firm has been distributing circulars inviting attendance at a beginning course in Scientology, which is being held at 32nd Avenue South, Minneapolis, Minnesota. These orientation courses are held every Sunday evening. Mr. Cartwright stated that he planned to attend one of the courses in the near future and would keep in touch with us as to any of the activities of the group. On May 20th of 1966, I contacted Mrs. Eyre and asked her if she had any more specific information regarding the use of machinery by this group. She stated that a friend of hers, a Mr. Frank Benson, had a 15-year-old son with whom he had problems communicating. This lad is extremely intelligent, being in the upper 1% of the national average. Mrs. Eyre had attended one of the orientation lectures. She did not know the exact address as to where this lecture was held. Mrs. Eyre's description of the machine used is that it is a floor model with dials and 2 electrodes that are like beer cans. These electrodes are held in either hand, and then the subject is asked various questions, and his reaction response is recorded. At a later date, the subject is told again, think about the identical questions, and again, the reaction response is recorded. The individuals using the machine make no curative or therapeutic claims. Apparently, the group has more than one machine as one failed to work properly, and they went upstairs and obtained another, according to Mrs. Eyre. Mrs. Eyre did not know the names of any of the individuals except that one of the psychologists was called Larry. Mrs. Eyre stated that she had attended this meeting with Mr. Benson. On May 26, 1966, I contacted Mr. Benson at his place of employment, the Remington Rand office. I told Mr. Benton that although Mrs. Eyre did give me his name and phone number as being the father of the individual who was being treated by the Scientology group, all of the information received by us is used solely for investigational purposes and remains in the strictest of confidence. Mr. Benson appeared to be quite willing to talk. However, as he frankly admitted, most of this was too much technical for him, and he therefore did not understand it. Mr. Benson's boy had been attending the Bloomington school system and had been seen frequently by Mr. Eubanks, a psychologist of the Bloomington school system. Mr. Eubanks had recommended that Mr. Benson have his boy enroll in the Scientology course. The cost of the course was $100 for the first 2-week period and then $250 for each of the 2-week periods thereafter. Total cost of the course is $600 for a 6-week period. Mr. Eubanks had stated that this group was using a new way of approaching psychology by releasing, quote unquote, inner thinking. After the 6 weeks course has been completed, the psychologist at Scientology then may suggest more courses or that the course be discontinued depending upon the needs of the subject. The subjects are told not to discuss the method of treatment or anything else concerning the group with others that are outsiders. Mr. Benson stated that his son has not even discussed the functions of the group with him. Mr. Benson stated that the boy has now completed approximately 4 weeks of the course, and he plans on having him drop the last 2 weeks and discontinue. He added that he has no proof of any foul play regarding the group or Mr. Eubanks. The boy appears to have improved and has also admitted to his father that he is now feeling better. However, Mr. Benson stated that he has not decided whether all of this is worth the money that has been invested. The only machine used on the boy was essentially the same as that discussed by Mrs. Eyre. That is a machine with 2 electrodes, which the subject holds, and then as he is interrogated, his reactions are recorded. Apparently, the machine is based on a reflex action. Mr. Benson stated, as did Mrs. Eyre, that no curative or therapeutic claims are made with the machine. Mr. Benson also stated that Mr. Eubanks is a devout member of the Scientology group. This summer, he is planning on attending an advanced course in Scientology held in St. Hill, England. This is a final course at a cost of $5,000, which will enable him to become a Scientology psychologist. Mr. Benson concluded by stating it is his fear that Mr. Eubanks may be taken in by the group and as a result could do the same to any of his subjects. The Scientology group in the Twin Cities is being run by husband and wife. However, Mr. Benson did not have their names at the time. He stated that they were on a check receipt at his home, and if he needed, he could obtain them for us. All of his checks are made out to the Minnesota Technical Institute of Scientology. Another member, Jan Duker, who is a member of the School of Psychology, University of Minnesota, is also known to be a dedicated member of the Scientology group. Since it appears that there is no violation of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act at the present time, the investigation was terminated at this point. The above material is being submitted for informational purposes. Walter Stoffacher, Inspector. So, the interesting thing for me in this particular article is the fact that Mr. Eubanks is a teacher that has all kinds of access to young kids and going to their parents and being like, hey, I really think that Scientology can help your kid here or there. It makes you think about how they go about recruiting children. even today with Mace Kingsley and Delphi and all of these Scientology schools. It's to ready them for the indoctrination. And these are teenagers. This was a teenager. So who knows if there were other younger children that were also being targeted by Mr. Eubanks. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. And no more kids in Scientology. Kids cannot consent. And remember to spread love and kindness wherever you go. And I will see you in the next one.